Hello everyone and welcome back to Talent League Season 9. We have another banger of a game for you tonight. Of course, we've just finished off a couple of games of Chalet. We're unfortunately going to go somewhere different, but we'll get to that in just a second. Of course, the teams that we have in front of us are FDM versus IAS. We'll just keep them short and sweet now because, of course, they are pretty difficult to say, especially for someone like me that's Scottish. This time, I am joined by the wonderful Aria, and we are going to get cracking with this just shortly because we've just got everyone in the lobby and we're ready to go. Aria, how are you feeling about your first cast inside the Talent League?
Oh, it's going to be a good one. It's going to be a good one, especially after coming from a busy enough weekend. Should be a very fun cast for us, to say the least. How are you feeling? How are you feeling?
I'm excited to go. I'm always excited to go. You know, everybody knows me. Everybody knows I like to shout at games, and I think I've got a few noise complaints probably coming in there. But I mean, we're in the ban phase, which I think we skipped the map ban phase, but it's okay. We'll just touch that in a second. We're going to bank. Straightforward stuff. It's best of one. I'm actually quite surprised to see bank coming out in a best of one. It doesn't happen all that often. It's usually your Oregons, Villas, things like Chalet as well, which is, of course we've just came off the back of playing on that twice. In terms of the actual map statistics, we've only been on bank once. It wasn't a major, first obviously major and the minor on the Thursday, because of course the major tonight. This is the final game of tonight, by the way, and it is of course a pretty good one that we have shaping up. And we're going to go through the operator phases, though. We're going to get into that just now. The operator bans, even. It's Nock and Osa. What are you thinking about that one, Aria?
Honestly, standard bans, especially the Osa ban. I want to touch on the Osa ban just a little bit before we go to the Nock. Osa ban, EMPs, those shields, and they're very hard to counter. Unless you've impacts and you're putting yourself at a massive risk, those Osa shields can be absolutely huge, and generally they can be round winning if used correctly. Again, the Nock ban, avoiding the cameras, and Nock is just that really stealthy operator that's just a thorn in the side of the defending team. Can be quite awkward for them. And again, the Cade, standard ban, don't think we really need to touch on that. And then the Azami, so many different angles can be created and made and just pinch the attackers in such different ways. It's no surprise to see her taken off the board whatsoever.
Certainly isn't. Of course, we became accustomed to seeing the Azami played in quite a lot of the rounds inside of the current meta, but of course is none other than that top floor on bank, using them to pop them onto those chandeliers to make sure that the angles are closed off from those repels. It's usually the way that it's played. And of course, we're not going to see that this time. Instead, they're going to be banned away, which is fine. That's okay. That's no problem at all. They'll likely a different choice that they'll take instead. Azami's still relatively new, so there's still ways that can be played. And of course, bank is one of the older ones in the map pool. It's been around for quite some time. It's been in and out of comp as well, but so this is quite a long run it's had for some time now. But getting into the actual matchup, of course, it is IAS versus FDM, and it is an interesting one because, of course, this is a battle of the top couple. Not the top couple, top four at least. You've got FDM on 9 points right now after 4 games, and you've got IAS currently on 12 points. So FDM take a couple of points tonight or whatnot, they'll get themselves up into the top 2 position, next to Chillwagon, they've just won as well. So I think they just lost, actually, now that I think about it. I think Goldini's actually beat them, if I'm 100%. Don't quote me on that one, I'm sure that was a result beforehand. I wasn't on that game, so I don't actually 100% know. But in terms of the actual game, it should be very competitive, and it looks as though we're getting it started in terms of the actual push coming in from the east side for the attackers.
Yeah, as we're saying, that the east side attack is going to be coming in here. They're going to start gaining this top floor control, making their way down into the open area, getting those hatches open. As I don't think we have any presence actually in the open area as such, so this should be an easy enough room clear coming out, as the Monty's already pushing their way down the blue stairs. And there's a lot of map control coming out very, very early on, as that server control is fully in the hands of IAS. And we're in the first 40 or so seconds of a round with this much map control. This is a dangerous position if you're in the side of FDM, as that pulse is actually going to be using the cardiac sensor, spotting out those attackers as they make their way into deep server. And that breach is already getting open. We're still 2 minutes left in the round, and there's so much control for the side of IAS here. It's going to be astonishing if, I don't think they're going to be expecting to have this much map control, as there's already such a presence here. Those Goyos are obviously going to pop. It means that plan can't go down for at least another 20 seconds. So that's going to slow them down quite a bit. But that Monty's already pushing in, so we could see a plan coming here very, very soon, Shannon.
Yeah, it looks as though they're going to try just that. They do have the flames of the Goyle, though, to try and prevent that at least for the time being. That will tick off at least 20 seconds, so they're going to have to wait and be patient. But they're going to opt to go behind the Monty instead and not go for that default plant. Sakari, though, is the one to do just that. The Monty in front, though, and there's nothing else happening on the map, really, at all. Ree's able to find Jakey Bombay, and now it's a 4 versus 4 as Baba finds one. That's Sakari to drop, and that is the UMP to find that kill. But the swing will come out towards the the default plant, but there's no one there. Of course, they did decide to try and plant on the Montaigne, and it will go down, of course, so they have the control as well, so they still have to try and deal with this Montaigne, though. Are they able to pull it out, though? The C4 is going to find Joker, but at the same time, Joker's able to get a kill, and it's a 3 versus 2 scenario. 3 versus 1 now is Sickly on the Montaigne, is left with it all to do. Are they able to pull this back, though? They've kind of fluffed their lines a little bit. The smoke is going to lock them out of the sight, and eventually Forever is able to get that kill, and the defenders pluck that one out from underneath. FDM take their first round.
What an absolute, the side of AES did not walk away with that round, and it was pretty much just whipped from under them. But that was an absolute beautiful round from IAS. They read into where the positioning of FDM was. They knew there was going to be, top floor, so we'll just take server. We don't care about, taking open area or anything. You can have that. We'll just take the server side and we'll push our way in through there, get that breach and get that diffuser down. Unfortunately, the defenders were able to kind of collapse onto them, and ones weren't won, and the utility was also there, so it kind of did delay the side of IAS. That post fuse, and then the Monty left in 1v3. Not a very winnable situation in that, when you have all those guns pointing at your head, you can't really do much.
Yeah, I mean, they played for the retakes. They had the pulse and say the gold a lot, calling out where the positions would be inside the server. So they had an idea at least that, where they wanted to go for in terms of the retake. And they had at least a suspicion that they would be giving up server. There was no one playing in it. There was no real attempt to hold on to it. They just kind of gave them it. And sometimes that is the way to play it. It did certainly work out for them. They had an idea and executed it perfectly well. They got the round on the board. Although we're going to go somewhere different. This time we're going to go to the top floor. And we're going to have a slightly different defense. And we're going to get to see some Solus area.
Oh, we love seeing a bit of Solus here. A perfect Solus, perfect played Solus, can be literally the definition of a winning round. If that Solus is played correctly, you don't get spotted out, don't get taken out in the early rounds, and you actually get to, live until the dying seconds of a plant going down. That Solus spotting you through the floorboards, especially on a map like Bank with such a high vertical, percentage on the floors. Solus can be absolutely huge here and round defining, but it looks like the drones are actually going to be coming out here, so that Solus is going to be 100% made aware of, and the attackers should be completely aware of what the Solus is attempting to do here. But this Solus is not playing exactly in the best position, as the angles are there, the cross angles can be gained to catch her, but it'll all depend whether IAS are going to decide, this Solus is going to be a massive issue, or whether she's not going to be. And it'll really depend on how much of a priority they decide for this Solus to be, as she can win rounds, and we have seen it before. Me and you personally have seen it in many casts where a perfect Solus play did have the defining round win. So it's not going to be something unusual to see.
Certainly possible, and I think just for the time being, they're just going to leave that and wait. They're not really going to bother with the clear of the Baba. I think they're just going to opt instead to go for a more of a site take and see if they can get a foothold inside of the map. And it looks as though Sickly and the Flores are going to try and pop themselves in there. Joker's able to find Dano though, and I think that was just the link up there. It was nicely done. They used the slice to open the window and had the player ready with the pre-fire through that, so they knew there was going to be someone on their side, and they reacted ever so slightly quicker and were able to get that kill. Joker with the zero, of course, able to bring in those cams and make sure they can lock off of main lobby, and gives them that avenue of approach from that side, and has a little bit of coverage behind so they can make sure that there's no one going to go for that flank or anything like that. Assuming that there is someone on those drones, which can be a little bit of an issue when you get to the last minute or so, but someone does fall. It is fantasy to fall, and they'll be straight onto those cams to make sure that they are keeping up to date with the zero cams, and that's exactly what they're. You can see that's where they are. So it's kind of one of those ones where losing the player, not ideal, of course. You lose an age, you lose the gun of Fantasy and the Ayana, but you gain the knowledge that they're going to be on those cams and utilising the information to the best of their ability. And off of that, Sickly is able to find the kill onto Bombay this time, and it's a 4 versus 3 scenario. And as we see, that Joker takes quite a bit of damage, but down below still lurks the Solus, who has not been dealt with and has been able to get quite a few of these zero cams locked off. Ree looking for the hunt inside of the site, gets his kill onto Rafa, and now it's a 2 versus 2 as Forever is able to find Ree as well with a refrag instantly coming through, but there's not quite a good stance for the HP for both teams, as Forever is now in a 1 versus 2 scenario, but there's a player just prone inside there, doesn't quite know that is where they are, sees the head just of Sickly there, can't quite land the shots, and instead just going to play a little bit of time, wait for the sound cue of the diffuser, knows someone's going to have to do for it, and that's exactly what they're going to have to play for, but swings just a little bit too early, takes the gunfight, and Joker's happily just going to sit there waiting for the kill and gets that done, and that is a round on the board for the attacking side of IAS.
Very, very well structured round coming out from IAS. They were taking the gunfights, and they were always there for the refrag. I don't think we saw many instances there where a refrag wasn't gained within the first couple seconds after the initial kill. And that Solus, not being used to her full potential. I know there wasn't really a plank going down or anything like that, but the zero cams were getting taken out. But the Solus, we didn't really get to see the full 100% usage of the Solus being used, which I think is quite unfortunate. But she was also cleared out pretty easily. There wasn't a lot of contention in that. So that's definitely something that's quite unfortunate to see. We're going to go back though to the top floor, as that Solus is also going to be brought out once again. Hopefully this time we actually get to see some planting on from the Solus, as those moments in rounds are just on the edge of your seat. You don't know what's going to happen. Will those Solus hit the shots? Who knows? But it's definitely some moments like that that we live for in this casting. But still, we're going to see pretty much a standard setup here coming out into Trump. Nothing unusual. We're going to see, they're going to hold the open area a little bit heavier, as we see their impact wall being made there. So it means they can rotate between archives and archives, tellers, and open area a little bit easier. They're not going to pinch themselves off and make it basically a tunnel vision for themselves. So that's definitely something nice to see, that they're going to be using those adaptions, that they can get away all the way around the map without having any issues.
Certainly will. And lurking down below, of course, there's a player just on the other side. Just going to be waiting for the gunfight, but look at that. Sickly is on top. Baba is dropped, and that's the soul is gone early. As like with inside 30 seconds of the round, the sledge opens up the scoreboard. Takes quite a bit of damage, of course, in that opening engagement, down to about 20 odd HP, but they won't be too worried about that, because of course they've been able to take off a full entire player. That's the roam done, and now they're going to try and work their way to get an execute here in towards stock and to set things up though. But Bombi's going to be dropped here this time, courtesy of Fantasy. He gets the kill on the Ayana this time and is able to at least live long enough this time to get themselves on the scoreboard, and now they're just going to low a little bit, slow down, and just take the time and open up these walls, make sure they have an opportunity to go in for the execute. And just as I say that, of course, Fantasy is just on a heater so far and gets himself a double kill inside of this round.
Yeah, double kill coming in there as Daniel's going to fall, and it's all going to be left down to the Legion and the Castle in a 2 versus 5 situation. Still a lot of time left on the clock, so there's the members of FDM falling very quickly as we say that. Rafa's going to find one onto Suker, and that's going to level up this man count just a little bit here. But as we say that, Forever finds one onto Joker, as Joker also did find one, as Forever finds a second one, and then we're left in a 1 versus 2 situation. Nades are going to fly out, can the kill be found, as the Ayana is going to find final kill as Fantasy lands that headshot, and that is going to be another round falling into the hands of AS.
Successful on the attack there. Of course, the Ayana taking pretty much the focal point of all of that attack. Quite a few kills coming through on side for Fantasy there. Much better than what we've seen in the last round, where they were indeed that opening pick. And they just didn't really have the impact, but this time they looked a lot more comfortable. They looked better, and they were able to win that top floor out. But this time, we're going to go down to the bottom floor again. And this time, just very quickly, going to be going down there, of course, down to the bottom floor and trying again, see if they can make amendments and whatnot, see if they can try and change things up in terms of the execute for it. Of course, they did have a good execute. Initial execute was great. They were able to get the diffuser down, but it was the retake ability and the retake potential that really came back to bite them. The use of the pulse to spot out people inside of server to make sure that they had the information and they could go for the swings, get the kills, and then they used utility well. They blocked off the Montaigne from coming back into towards the site and towards server, and they used it really well, got the kill, and they were able to win that round. And that was the only round that FDM have won so far.
Yeah, it was an amazing retake. As we said, the execute was absolutely insane. They read into the defenders perfectly with pinpoint accuracy. It's just that retake was an absolutely insane one coming out from FDM. And if you're leaving rounds though to that final, retake, and if that's what your main goal is, you're going to leave yourself pinched out on so many rounds, and it's not a great position to leave yourself in. But I'm just hoping this time we see FDM spread out a little bit more, stopping that control, as they were pretty much relying on that pulse, as you saw in gold, just to let them know when they were in server, which works, but it's not ideal. So if they can kind of spread themselves out, make that harder for the side of AAS to take that initial control. As we saw, there was pretty much full control of server in blue within the first 30 seconds of the round. Not ideal. That standard year 1 blue shield is what we need to see here. But as I said, that the on is already getting pushed up here, and that top floor control is pretty much already in the hands of IAS, as there's not really much contention, as that Capcan was lurking around, but he is not going to be looking like he's going to cause any issues here for the side of IAS as of now. But those Capcan traps are something we need to point out, as in the later rounds, they could be absolutely dire for the side of IAS.
Certainly could. Of course, Dana up on the top floor, they're just putting in some work to try and get a couple of kills, but it's not able to connect to anything, takes a little bit of damage and drops back. And pulls back around about that minute mark, which is usually when you want your roamers to start fading back a little bit. And they do still have a bit of a roam game in this mid floor. There's 2 players inside of the open area, and there's 1 player just inside that elevator area. So they are playing together, playing close, and Forever is the first one to be down. I'm not sure where it came from, and they are down, but they're eventually dealt with. It's Joker to find that kill. Fantasy moving down the office staircase and knows that there could be someone lurking down the stairs as well. Joker now downed because there's a player inside that elevator still, and Fantasy, sorry, not even that, it's actually an EDD that gets the down as Fantasy now rotates round just to get the revive. 20 HP now for Joker, who can get himself in a position to use that Jackal tracker to try and find any more roamers should there be any.
I love the plays of the Capcan. You know, it's capitalizing on that lack of attention that comes from the attackers. As we say that though, it's going to be that's going to be Goyo finding the headshot, and that's going to be your Ash falling. Again, Ash has already got most of the work done. That map control was already gained, but these nades are going to rain down into red, which is going to push the defenders back even a little bit more. But still, 55 seconds on the clock, a lot slower paced of round. Not as much map control gained here for the side of IAS as we had seen in previous rounds. But still, this hatch control is gained as those Goyos have also gone off. So the Goyos shouldn't be that much of an issue coming here into the dying 20 seconds of the round, as those nades are just going to rain down into red area, where generally you see the mirror setup. Mirror's not on banned, she's not being played. So it looks like teams have adjusted around not having that mirror on the board. But those smoke waves are also going to ring out the main stairs, which is going to slow them down. But it looks like we could actually see a bit of a hatch drop coming here into the elevator, which could be an absolute crucial play, Sham.
It certainly could, of course, just lining up the drop just now. Fantasy does eventually execute that, drops through, and is looking to try go on the hunt for anyone that could be on the other side, and does find 1 kill at least, and looking for a second, but can't quite land the shot as Sucker is going for that defuse. Now, Fantasy, though, is taken out the board, of course. C4 comes out, 3 versus 1, the Planter's dead, Joker's on a 1 versus 3, and it looks to be closed out there by Baba to find that kill with a 1.5 on the pulse, and that's another round on the bottom floor, nonetheless, for FDM. That's 2 this time, this side of the half on this fence.
FDM looking extremely comfortable defending the bottom site. They're not seeming to have many issues, as you know, they were able to slow down the attackers this time. Map control, as I've mentioned multiple times already, wasn't the crucial aspect of that round. And again, as we mentioned, those EEDs, you don't pay attention, you're going to come contact with them. And unfortunately, we did see one of the members on the side of IES fall down to a Capcan, was able to be revived with that 20 HP with all the utility that's going to be thrown at you. It's not an ideal situation. But we're actually going to see open area coming out here for the first time, as the side of FDM have decided, you know, top floor isn't quite working for us. Let's try this and see if we can make this work for us instead. There's going to be needing a top floor hold here, though, 100% to delay this vertical play, which will be coming in from the side of IES, as we're seeing, you know, the sledge is being brought. And the Zoff probably has the breach charges as well, so it's definitely going to be a lot of vertical play coming out here from them, which ideally is what you need. But you also want that top floor, you know, to take the roamer control. If there's roamers on that top floor coming into 9 seconds of a round, it can be absolutely dire for your attacks. And we're just going to have to wait and see what they do, as, you know, that top floor, as I mentioned, is a crucial play.
Yeah, certainly is, of course, and we have a little bit of an extension out towards the Teller side. You have the castle in tow, and we'll open up some angles just to make sure that they have an avenue to try and pressure on anyone that does come up that main staircase. They're going to extend using these castle barricades, just barricading off that main lobby area so no one can push up on the castle who's just playing on that staircase, and will likely drop down a little bit to have the angle in towards the arcades area and in towards Tellers as well. Secondly, though, just hold an angle in towards open area and is punished for exactly that. It is, of course, the pulse to find that kill, or sorry, the castle to find that kill with the UMP. And now, when 5 versus 4 scenario, opening pick goes towards the side of FDM, and on the rappel as well, Ree's just going to hold and play for time and just trying to find anyone that's going to caught lacking and not paying attention to the fact that there could be someone on that rappel. But it's very common. These players will be wise to it. They'll know exactly where they can be safe and where they can stand and whatnot, so they'll not be really going to get much profit out of holding that angle as such. But 4 versus 4, as there is a kill to come through. It's Sucker to find this one, and he's able to get the kill this time. So 4 versus 4 scenario, but popping in towards Janitor, a kill comes through. It's a 3 versus 3 though, as the trade also at the same time. And now it's just going to slow down a little bit, or is it? Of course, the C4 is going to find its mark this time, and we're just slowing down again eventually, Aria.
Yeah, we're going to come down here now to the final dying seconds of the round. So this is where the final execute is going to have to come in. As the Buck being first pick, that vertical control is not going to be seen this round whatsoever. Unless you want to use those off charges to blow up that floor, you're not going to get that utility as you would like. But as we say, that Zoff's going to actually find one of everyone onto forever, and that's going to be your Legion Fallen. So it's just a game of refrags here that Gumine is going to give the Zoff's location as well with the kill. And this angle has just been held here by Suka. And it's just waiting to see if the defenders will peek into the angles, but there's not. There's quite a lot of time left on the clock, but it looks like the attackers are just kind of stalling out. That they don't have the control that they would like. There's no vertical play for them to use, and really all the defenders have to do here is sit back and wait and let the attackers just peek into their guns. As we say, that there should be a bit of an altercation here between the Valk and the Zoff. Not going to quite happen though, as Zoffy is, or the Valk I should say, is after being able to rotate back to side a little bit. As Zoffy is going to put a little pressure, those candles are going to come in. We should see the execute start rolling here, as Zoffy is idle and waiting. As Zoffy is going to push in, finds the headshot onto one, and it's all left into 1 versus 2. As Zoffy finds the second headshot, pins him against the wall, and that's another round falling into the hands of IAS.
Certainly is great attack there. They're able to execute using pretty little man count in the end. Of course, 2 versus 2. They're able to get that kill on the board for a couple of good ones. And IS are looking pretty strong at this time being. Of course, they're doing pretty well on the scoreboard as well, which is always pretty good. Now, obviously, for this situation, though, of course, we're going to see a couple of picks coming out that I quite like to see. You like to see the Yang coming out. Of course, Sucker's going to be the one to hop into that. IS are currently in the driving seat on 3 points to 2. And the Valk as well is going to be a strong operator on this defense of Bank. Of course, you can pop them all around the main lobby, and it's a bit of a pain.
This definitely can be a major pain. As we've seen, IQ hasn't been brought out very often anymore. Her pick rate has definitely fallen down from back in the day when she used to have nades. And even still, it's just the ban rate of Valk in the previous year or so has just made IQ sort of obsolete. There's no real need to bring an IQ anymore, but as we did say, the Valk has made it through the ban phase here, so definitely they're going to use the full utility of Valkyrie in this situation. Hopefully this time we don't get to see the Buck being picked off as early, as we didn't get to see that vertical play, but as in the dying seconds of the round, the Ying was able just to make a little small pocket-sized hole to throw those Candelas in, letting the Zofia push through and just collect those final 2 frags, which we gotta admit was an absolutely amazing execute with very little resources and very little time on the clock.
Certainly. Of course, we're going to be going for a little bit of a roam here. A little bit around the map. Of course, you mentioned the Valk as well. We're popping them around the map, make sure they have information available to them. But on the counter side of that, there is the Zero, which is in the hand of Joker, who is able to utilize the same type of cams. You can, I say same type, but what I mean by that is cams that you can basically pop up anywhere. You don't need to place them in a static area like you would a bulletproof camera. Open pick here. Well go to IS, they're able to find Rafa, and that's the castle gone, the 1.5 along with it. And they'll go into those Valk cams. So this could be at least a little bit beneficial to the defenders. They lose a player, but they at least gain someone that can sit on those cams and make sure that they're getting the full utility and usage out of those cameras that have been brought alongside for the Valkyrie.
Yeah, and those Valk cams, they're so small as well. They're definitely very hard to find, especially if you have a really good Valkyrie who knows very well how to hide them and everything. But still, we have to talk about this map control. There's quite a lot here on the side of IAS, as especially having the man count in your favor and gaining, pretty much top floor is all in theirs. There's definitely, there is one player up there, but they don't seem too worried as of yet. And I'm not quite sure which operator that is up there, but at the same time, there's a major amount of map control, as this Sophie is holding a major tunnel zone. As we say that, though, it's going to be the Solus finding one, and that's going to be Fantasy Fallen, as that's a set of nades and your clones. But as we say that, a refract comes back in, and that's Fantasy also going to be finding the other end of that gun, as the Zoff is able to fire off some shots and, take some more damage off the players on FDM.
So that's 2 versus 4 now. Of course, Reef collects another one. This time is Baba that have fallen. It's looking like it's a snowball effect through the rest of this round. Looks like IS are firmly in control so far. Bombay and Dana are still left alive, and they're going to have to try and work something here to try and get this clutched up and bring it back a little bit. It's not really quite worked out for them, but they're doing some amount of vertical play, and I actually suspect it looks like they almost actually maybe misdrown the site for a second there. Did we know that it's open area? Because they're doing vertical play inside of CEO. CEO. They seem to think that that's where the site is. I think they might have a feeling that it's archives and tellers, but that's not exactly where the site is. Of course, the Buck is still doing quite a bit of redecoration in there. They're on the close angle, waiting for something to come in the open area, and eventually they're going to be able to bring the drones round towards the white staircase and go through in towards open area, and they will drone the bomb at least, and they will at least definitely confirm that that is where it is. The Buck is rotated in towards stock to try and open more angles, but instead drops the hatch, and there's another kill to come through, and now the last one sickly with it onto Bombi, and that is all she wrote for that round. As another round goes towards IAS, who take a 4-2 split on the first half of Bank.
4-2 split is very, it's a typical split. We either see the 4-2 or the 3-3. Those are kind of splits that you'd ideally like to take in here, and it absolutely lines up IAS perfectly for going on to their defenses. But as I've always said in my previous casts, the next 2 rounds are going to be the crucial ones here for either team, as generally you can have a team that, they can be quite good on their attack, quite coordinated, but when they get to defense, things can get a little bit choppy in the waters, and it can be quite difficult for them. So we'll just have to wait and see whether the side of IAS can have it as comfortable as a lead on their defenses, because that's where really this round is going to have. This is where it's going to have to be for them. They have to win these defenses now. That's where this game lies.
Certainly is. That is going to have to. It's going to have to come through at some point. They're going to have to bring out a good defense to capitalize on the form that they've created on that attack, and I think they will. I think they will, to be honest. The IS they're not at the top of the leaderboard for nothing. They are in a good form just now. They're doing really, really well, and they've been consistent throughout. This game as well. They've shown it. They've shown why they're top of the leaderboard so far, and they've had a good couple of good situation. The only place that they weren't able to break down the defense of FDM is the basement. That's the only place they couldn't do it. So they lost that twice. They just couldn't break that down. And there was a time where basement on Bank was considered one of the strongest sites in the game because of the way that it's a 5-man turtle. Pretty much always has been. Of course, some teams go for that roam, and they still like to do that. But it was considered a 5-man turtle, and it's always been difficult to attack. So it's still a difficult one to attack sometimes, even though with the rework and the changes to Bank and whatnot. But we'll see what they have to come on the attack this time for FDM, and see if they can overcome the obstacle that is IAS.
Yeah, as IAS they have, it's not a default as such setup, but it's still, it's bringing those default aspects into it. They're running the basics. They're not looking to show too much. They're not wanting to overexpose their strats. As we say that, though, it's going to be the Sledge finding one, and that's going to be the Mute of Sickly taken down, and that's going to be a C4 off the board very early on, which, in the dying seconds round, C4 can mean life or death in this game, but also still, Mute has all his utility down already. Well, at least should have. So you're not taking off any utility on that aspect, but still, it's not a nice thing to have a player down with, still around 2-ish minutes on the clock. But as some shots are going to fire to square, as the refrag already going to be gained, as the Echo is going to find one onto the head of Sledge. That's going to be Bombi to fall early enough in that refrag. As we've mentioned, this game is just a game of refrags. There's always someone having an answer back to what's happening in the round.
Certainly is, of course, a 4 versus 4 scenario at this moment in time, and it's just gonna get a little bit quiet at this moment in time. Of course, that's just the way it usually works. The middle kind of minute in the typical siege round or any comp setting usually is a little bit slower. After those kind of entry aggressions have happened, and then maybe 1 or 2 players have fallen, that's when the players just stop for a second. They try to reassess, reevaluate where they want to bring this execute from, and that's exactly what the attacking side of FDM are going to do. But it's IS, they're going to struggle here. They've actually dropped quite a few players. They've got 1 player down. There's Joker that's lying down on the Rooney. Of course, he's down but not out, so can be revived at some point. Sucker and Ree have it all to do. If there's anybody that can do it, it would be those 2, and the kill is eventually confirmed. But 2 versus 2, as Ree's able to get himself 1. 2 versus 1 now, has another flick out but can't quite land the shots, and the attackers of FDM take the round in very convincing fashion.
Yeah, it looks like a complete turn in pace for the side of FDM, as they've just awoken essentially coming into their attacks. The defense were a little bit they struggled. Let's admit, they did struggle a little, but it was also due to the fact that IAS had an absolutely amazing, they were able just to pull stuff off on the fly, and it worked. But they've just came in with a different tempo here into their attacks, and it's just absolutely, the side of IES is just not able for it. So many players dropping, after, as you mentioned, that, the middle section of a round where it's just gaining your intel and stuff. It looks like IES were getting a little bit too aggressive in those certain instances, and they were just dropping bodies early on. And then it was just a side of, FDM just to walk in and claim those lives.
FDM looked very convincing. You know, I mentioned just in the last round they looked convincing. That's the best word to encapsulate that round. They looked comfortable, they looked good, and they done really well with their clears through, and they got really pinned IES in and got the kills of it. They got the round from that. Bottom floor this time though is where we're going to be heading for a defense of IES, and we're getting a Vigil coming out. First one inside of this fixture, and it's Joker that's going to be in charge of that operator, just coming through the map and making sure that it's a nuisance. They want to play against time and make sure that these drones have to take quite a bit of time to get through the map. And it's just a lot of the time the way that Vigil is played is actually just in an interference role, in a distraction. Oh, where is he? I'm not sure. It's just it's almost like a ghost roam to say the least, because they're 9 teams out of 10. They're not in the room that you think they're in, and it does work over multiple floors. So if you're on the top floor and whatnot, you may be on the middle floor, and it really does just put a little bit of doubt in the minds of the attackers if they try to clear through the map. And the first drones come in towards that conference and CEO area, and it's Joker to just move a little bit out towards that banana side. And of course, there probably will be someone moving onto that rappel at some point and cutting it off, but no one as of yet. There is plenty of information towards the main lobby side for the defenders. 2 minutes and 20 seconds on the clock, and we've yet to see a kill area.
Yeah, as we say that, as the first kill's already going to rain in, and that's going to be the player of Forever finding one onto that mute very early on. And one thing I'd like to reiterate on your point, saying, when you're mentioning about the drones and the Vigil, they're bringing out Mozzie, Mute, and the Vigil here. This is an anti-drone as you can physically get. As we say that, another kill going to fall into the hands of FDM here, as they're looking absolutely dominant here, as this top floor control has been fully gained. And a third one is for the SMG-11. Fourth kill coming out, and it's all down to a 5 versus 1 with still a minute 40 in the clock. So much time, and so many bodies have fallen. It looks like the side of IS went for a little too heavy of a roam, and they're looking to fall for it. And the Valkyrie isn't even on site. Not too sure if the side of FDM are aware. But this Valk actually could be in a very, very precarious situation here as a 4 versus 1, as finds one. And that's going to be the headshot falling on to the player of Bombi. And those drones are going to locate the Valk. But those calls are definitely going to be there, as the head of the Valk is going to be taken off. And that's going to be Forever finding the final kill, putting another round on the board for FDM.
Try as you like. The Valk just not able to get enough kills and enough to get that clutch in, and instead falls. And now we're looking at a sticky situation for IES, who were looking convincing. They were in the lead 4-2, of course, and now we're back to 4-4. So we're back to even the odds as if we never even started the game. It's almost 0-0. That's exactly where we stand right now after 8 rounds. We're equal each. And it's been very much a momentum and a pendulum swing across towards the other side of FDM. We've had a wonderful attack so far on Bank. And of course, Bank is an attacker-sided map. You do need to remember that, audience. There is quite a bit to go into it, but for the most part, it is attacker-sided. So there's no surprise that they would be in this situation. But the surprise is that after what was a relatively poor first half, they have came back fighting. They've landed so many shots. They've got Forever having a wonderful time so far, getting so many kills on that entry. And it's the team unity that we've seen from this side that are really winning out those rounds so far.
Yeah, 100%. I want to reiterate on that. It's like the team chemistry is there. We can see it fully. They're all stacking up with each other. As we saw, that top floor control that last round was insane. They walked their way through. The drones were there, and then you had your entries there just to pick up those bodies where they were. The Vigil falling, and then everyone would it was just kind of domino effect in the end, as it all fell down to a 5 versus 1 with still a minute 40 or so on the clock. Not ideal situations to be in. And they're just absolutely walking through IAS right now from what was, as you mentioned, not a very convincing start from them. And now they're looking to have just flipped that dominance on its head. And they're just looking amazing. That's a simple way to put it. They're just looking amazing.
And they are so far, and early on inside this round, they're getting the drones in towards the main lobby side, and they'll look to begin the push and down towards the site and see if they can get an execute set up, and they'll do just that with this rappel here coming in from Lady Sophia. Of course, just holding an angle, has the 1.5 and opening up these windows and giving them options and making sure that the players that are floating around inside the CEO feel the pressure and feel the presence of those players on the rappel, because that's exactly what you want to do on Bank. It has so many rappels, you want to abuse them. You want to make sure that these defenders have to be conscious of any windows around them. They have to be listening and paying attention and moving around with caution, even if you're not on the windows that much, even if you're just hanging off of it, letting them know, letting them have the sound cue that there's a rappel there. They'll have to be careful of it every single time. Ree has the Echo here, of course, has the drone set up inside the main lobby, and we'll use that to call out any of these drones that do come up that banana staircase, and eventually the push will come through, and I think it is the sledge that's coming in from that side, but look at that, Baba knew exactly which window Ree was going to peek from, gets the kill, and another one to come through at the same time. Bombay finds Sickly this time, and now we're in a 5 versus 3 scenario, and it's not looking great, Ari, is it?
It's looking pretty dire here for the side of IES, but you still have that player holding Encanto, and which could be the differentiating round here. If that player can stay alive for any length of time whatsoever, it can cause major issues. But as I say, that flashbangs are going to be raining into sight here, as we're going to see the both two players entering in, bearing 9 in hand, as that diffuser is already going onto the ground. It's going to be Istuka to find one on the Baba, but still, that player on Kanto is causing an absolute issue, as we have mentioned. But that diffuser is so far in the corner, it's going to get stuck. Now we're in a 4 versus 2 situation, as all Isuka and Joker to try and pick up these final pieces of the round and try pull it back, as that player on repel is going to find a lot of damage here on the Joker, and the round is looking absolutely dire, as one is not Suka's going to fall, and it's all going down to Joker here on an absolute sliver of HP. It's going to be literally a sneeze here from the Hibana or whoever is on repel to take him down, but it looks to find one, but the cross is there, finds one in as Constellation, but is not going to be able to close off, and that's going to be FDM taking another round comfortably.
Yeah, Feria de Malaga looking wonderful so far on their attack. They're just really, really constricting the site and utilising their utility to the best possible advantage. Of course, bringing in the drones, making sure they're set up, that they have the information, especially in that main lobby area where you'll see a lot of rotations come through, especially through that banana staircase or coming round towards tellers and towards that canto spot or hopping through archives and whatnot. There's quite a lot of movement to be found inside the main lobby, and they had drones set up, so they knew exactly where Joker was when he dropped them. There was someone pre-fire on him, down to about 5 HP, and they're never really going to get out of that scenario alive, especially with the coverage on the actual diffuser, even if he was to kill the player outside, and by the time they go back to the site, just not going to be enough time to get that diffuser down. And of course, because of that, we're seeing a pretty substantial swing, 3 rounds on the bounce coming through from FDM from that side's change, and we're going to see a timeout coming from IAS.
Yeah, this is a very crucial tactical timeout, in my opinion. You had a very dominant attack, you've moved on to your defense, and your defenses are just absolutely being pulled apart from the seams by the side of FDM. This is where you really need to pick it up, because it's only one more round away from match point here, Sham. As it's 5-4. This is where you hope this tactical timeout is going to come in to serve justice, but at the same time, FDM are just so dominant. They're not taking one-on-one gunfights. It's always going to be 1 or 2 players kind of stacked up on each other, always to be able to catch that refrag. And it's just that's what IAS are struggling with. And holding onto that map control late into the round is just not something that IAS are. They're not finding it easy.
Yeah, IAS so far haven't really been tested that much in the league. They've really found it quite easy to get past quite a lot of their oppositions, whereas FDM, they've actually had a bit tougher time of course, they've lost the game as well, and that's made it a little bit more difficult. So they've been in more competitive games, and that's maybe what's coming to light here, where IAS have had a comfortable ride, so that means you haven't had to maybe try as hard as what you might have to. And now that they're up against an opponent who has been tried and tested for the last few weeks and has really had to try and scrape and get every single point and every single round, then that's coming back to hit them, and it's not really working out for them. It could be that, could be completely wrong, could just be an off day for them. That could be it. Of course, it is best of 1 format, and this is where this kind of situation can arise when you're on just the one map and you really only have the one chance. And you never really, you don't get to pick the map. It's just very, very much a decider. It's all based on bans. You never really get to decide where you go, so it can be quite sticky, and that's where it can be an iffy situation to be in, and for best of 1 situation. So that's maybe what it is. That's maybe all it is. But I'm hoping that IS can gather himself after that tactical timeout and see if they can get us back into this game.
100%. We'd love to see this being a bit closer, but I was going to say that's going to be a C4 to pop up already, and that's going to be Baba falling, and that's your Yana falling. Not something ideal, but that's an absolutely amazing frag to get on the board that early in the round. We're still only 2 minutes left to go, so ample amount of time here for the side of IIS. As we say, that one is going to be felled in a refrag, and it's all going left here down to a 4 versus 4. Still a minute 57 on the clock. Quite some time. Drones are going to start swinging out here. That's top 4 is fully in the hands of the side of FDM. They've gained what map control they want. This vertical should be opening up very, very soon. And this is where the side of IES should be able to capitalize on getting those reverse angles up onto that book, being able to get, just at least 1 or 2 off those reverses. And if they can do that, this round should be an easy enough round if they can just hold their angles, take out that player that's going to be playing the vertical, hold your angles, it shouldn't be that difficult of a round. But as we say that, the side of FDM, they're also very dominant and they're also holding on to those refrags very, very easily. So this is definitely going to be a bit of a challenge around here for the side of IAS.
Just as we say that, IAS are able to collect a couple of kills, and they're going to make you eat your words at least. And now down to FDM, they're not looking at a good situation. Down to just the Ash and the Buck, the two operators that don't really have any value when it comes to open up walls or anything other than the soft destruction, really. That's all they really bring. And some good guns, of course. So if there's any operators that you want to be left, at least you want some good guns. And Spots ahead there for a second there, but it's a double kill from Sucker, who's able to get that kill, and the defenders of IS win that round. The tactical timeout is going to come through with a profit immediately. They're able to get the round on the board, and they equalise the score. That is 5 apiece after 10.
Honestly, I'm seeing a full OT game, Sham. I can sense it. I can feel it. The spidey senses are absolutely off the charts at the moment for a full OT. Coming back that drastically after your tactical timeout and absolutely, just turning again. This game has been flipped on its head so many times at this point. We saw it after the 6-round split, and now we've just seen it again after this. One more round, and it could really destroy the mental of FDM. But we're just going to have to wait and see, as we haven't seen that was one good round. C4 early kill taking out your Yana. A lot of utility off the board. Those Yana clones, especially, as we have seen, they can be absolutely huge for that, especially for the intel. But still, one round, is that going to be enough, do you reckon, of a decider to say that IES can take this?
I am going to be controversial, and I'm just going to disagree with you. I think the FDM are going to take this one. I think we're going to have a lot of healthy competition between the casters, I think, is the way to put that. I think the FDM are going to win this one, I think that those attacks, they just really showed me a little bit something, I'm not convinced with IES after just having the one round, but I could be proved wrong. I'm always open to be proven wrong. I always want to see it, but it's the bottom floor, and this is a cursed site for people to deal with. I think IES will be in a good situation. They'll be happy to be on the bottom floor, and I think the FDM are at least going to be tested for this attack.
100%. As one of those, the defense on Bank, it's one of those, as you mentioned earlier on in the broadcast, it's one of those sites that used to be the primary site. Everyone, it was the strongest. But because of that, it got played so much. Now it's become one of the weaker ones. As we say that, the Smoke is also going to lose a lot of HP there in that altercation. As I think that could have been actually from the Goyo popping that damage was gained from. So, but as again, this is what we needed to see when it was FDM on their defense. We're going to see the basic blue shield hold, double ADSs. We love to see it, champ. This is what we live for. These old strats that are old but amazing.
Certainly is, and they don't have a Montaigne at all with them, so they're not going to really be able to get any benefit of pushing directly in towards server through that dirt area, so they can't really do that, but they're going to instead take the time to clear out blue, and it is a warden with a shotgun, of course. It's a very common way to play this. Now, you would usually see the smoke here back in the day, obviously with the addition of warden being added on a little bit later on, and now people kind of picking up that he has the same shotgun. He's the one played in this position, he can avoid those flashes, and just as we said, right on cue, the shotgun does find its mark. Straight into the chest of the Ayana of Baba Zaron. They have the control of blue back, at least. There's no one there really to get it though, but look at the pinch, it comes from behind! They've taken server! Who is the one in charge of server and protecting the player that's on the blue staircase? They have abandoned the player to die, but there was someone else on the refrag at least to get that there, so it's not all lost. 3 versus 3. As the wall is now opened up using those breaching charges. And they're going for that default plant immediately. You've seen the smoke wave came out a little bit early there, and I actually think they might get this defuse off because of that. It's going to come again, and it is going to be too late. He's going to be able to stick the plan. It's a 3 versus 3 post-plant situation with the attackers now with all of the angles to hold. And look at that. Vertical 2 versus 3, and the SMG-11 is able to find its mark area.
I'd say able to find his mark and it lands the shots. As we say, that the fantasy is also going to fall into a 2 versus 2. As in engagement here, as the SMG-11 is not going to quite hit the shots, as the Asher Forever is going to find it in triple kill of the round, and it's all going to be down here to the final 20 seconds or so of the round, as it's all left in the hands of Goyo to try and find these final 2 players. There's not enough time here. Goyo can maybe find some kills for consolation prizes, but that's about all that's going to be gained here as the shots are going for fire. Goyo finds one, that TCSG coming out absolutely huge, able to take the player down, but it's not able to find the final, as that's a round going straight to FDM. A very comfortable round at that.
Certainly was, and the FDM, they really read that perfectly. Rafa on the thermite showing us how just that big brain of a support can work. They came up for the defuse and they seen that the smoke babe came across, and usually when the smoke player throws that, they've got two kind of situations. You can throw it and you can, watch it and make sure you've thrown it correctly and you time it and whatnot, or you can throw it out and look at another angle. And that's what happened. The smoke looked away, just tossed the smoke babe across. Yeah, I've got that default plant covered. Don't worry about it, guys. It's fine. I've tossed my smoke across. You don't have to worry about it. I can worry about this other angle. That's exactly what it's done. Turn around, obviously, and Rafa's already 75% through the plant because the smoke actually went a little bit too far. Rafa read the situation perfectly because the smoke was never going to throw a second smoke babe, not while the other one was going, at least not to their knowledge, because they couldn't quite see that it wasn't quite close enough to the default plant. Just a misplay there, the smoke denial not quite working out. Rafa gets the plant down, and then it's all but over for the round there. And FDM take us on in for their first match point of the fixture.
Yeah, as you mentioned, first match point. This is where there is no room for mistakes here with IAS. They cannot afford to make any blunders, absolutely zero. So, this is, high pressure, and, ideally IAS would love to win this game, but they're already, both teams are already on such a high standing already on the scoreboard. I don't think, they'll just be looking for the slightly higher standing. They're already in a comfortable position as is, but as we say, that Rafa is going to get spawn peaked here, and that's going to be the rook of Joker finding that frag with a beautiful headshot to land that Hebon off the board. And that's going to be that's actually the only hard breacher now taken off the board. So those walls are going to remain closed. And that's definitely going to put the side of FDM here in a slightly sticky situation. As those hard breach, getting those walls would be nice.
Certainly would be, and the thing is, though, is of course it is the attacker side on the top floor, so I said that a little bit wrong, but hey ho. But yeah, top floor is pretty much attacker sided. So losing the Habana isn't too detrimental because there's a couple walls you want to open. You of course want to open that, exactly where the rook was just looking of Joker. He was just looking along that corridor towards that cantle spot. That's what you want to open up to make sure that you have the long angle all the way along that corridor from the rappel, so you have that as an option. And then you have the main breach towards that A side and into CEO that if you do need to open it up, but a lot of the time it is soft. So if you do have someone that has some soft destruction, of course the Ash is on side still, so you can get through that wall usually if you need to. Yellow ping's coming out towards the player inside of Janitor, so they have the information there is one inside of there, and that is 9 times out of 10 the situation, so I don't think anyone will be too shocked to get that information through to them. But there is still a shield player outside of Janitor to be dealt with. It is the rook with the 2 times, and someone is going to have to try and pluck them out of here to try and get some map control on that side before they can even think about going for an execute coming in from this north side.
Almost a narrow headshot there coming off from the warden onto the player on the upside down rappel. As you mentioned, this rook going to cause an absolute issue, but that shield should be destroyed now as the Ash is going to get aggressive there to take that down. As those breaching charges, we typically don't get to see the Ash being used, that much for utility. But as we say that, the rook is going to get absolutely peppered from 2 different angles, somehow managing to escape with his life in this situation. But these castle barricades are going to kind of keep the defenders a little bit safer here for the time being. But the pressure should be starting to be increased here very, very shortly. As you have the one mice sitting here on the top of the main stairway. As the pressure definitely needs to be dialed up here. There's 50 seconds on the clock, and there's some of that wall already open. The Ying Candelas are still on the board, so we should definitely see a bit of a Ying execute coming here as the Doki looks get aggressive, but that's going to be the Rook finding his second frag in the round and taking down another player. Actually, that was the Doc, my unfortunate, but still that Doc able to heal himself back up as one is going to be found, and that is going to be the player of Forever finding one, using that Ash to the full utility once again. But as we say, that Joker finds another frag in the round, giving himself a double kill.
FDM falling apart here a little bit now. It's a 1 versus 4 situation, but Forever is the person who remains alive, and he looks as though he could go on for Forever with these kills tonight, on 17 kills so far, and trying to go for the hunt for the picks, but it's not going to get anything at all. He's just put straight in the dirt before I can even connect any more of a cast for him. He is put into the dirt, and that is us all the way. We're going to overtime.
We love to see the overtime, Sham. This is, I don't think, we've had overtime every game today. Every game, just casually.
Yep.
Overtime.
The first one, well, ever so slightly, the first one was settled inside of regulation. However, in Uncook's mind, it went to overtime because it was Chalet, and that man did, I think he did like 48 rounds of Chalet, so yeah. I think that's probably why we seem to think that it went to overtime. It didn't. It did not go to overtime. The last game did go to overtime. This one has also gone to overtime, and I think that we will see a basement defense. Exactly that. That is where we're going to be heading to. Of course, why wouldn't you? It's the strongest site, and it's proven to be the only one that people can really win on this side of the map. Of course, I'm going to go down there, and it is a nice lineup they're bringing. You have the pulse. I like the contrast in plays. This is what I like. I like that they play the pulse. I like that they play for the retake. Whereas the other side, you know, IAS, they want to play with the smoke and whatnot. So I like that. I like that we've seen a couple of different options, to be honest.
We want to see, you know, they're kind of slipping away from these, you know, standard strats, you know, your standard basics that you bring, which is always amazing to see. You bring some sort of, you know, freshness into the game. It's not always the same standard, basic, boring strats, essentially. But we're still not seeing the mirror sample. She's on the board. We're not seeing the mirror.
Yeah, I am a little bit puzzled a bit. I am a little bit puzzled as to why it's not been brought. Because Twitch isn't in a place where you would bring Twitch, let's be honest. No one really wants to touch that operator because Brava is objectively just better at the moment because of the changes to the gun. Don't really want to bring it. Of course, if you do want to specifically have the counter a Mira, then you could, you know, by all means do it. But, you know, it's not really going to happen, let's be honest. You can sneak the Mira in if you want. I think they've just not got the strats for it because you use that main Mira window on red and you use it then to deny the plant. And the issue is red's very difficult to play in now. It used to be a lot easier to play in back in the day, and now it's so difficult to actually play in. It's a nuisance to hold on to, even with the changes to make it, you know, less of a, you know, you're actually less exposed than what you used to be, but still it's objectively harder, and I think that's maybe why they don't want to bring the Mira, but not 100% sure. Of course, they're just going to opt instead to go for the standard kind of lineup that we've seen the last time from them. The Oryx as well coming through. Fantasies inside the map already on the top floor, hunting down anyone that could be lurking around, but the first kill is going to go to the side of FDM. We open up the scoreboard and find that the kill onto Joker, and that is Capital taken off the board, and all of those Capital bolts are gone, despite the buff not going to be able to do anything with them.
A lot of guns are all pointed up here to Forever on the top floor. He should not be able to walk out of this one alive. Maybe he can try to get himself a consolation frag, but just hide behind that desk as he is going to get absolutely ripped down. That Yana is able to find the frag, and now we're back to a 4-4 scoreline. Unfortunate that Forever was kind of left in that sort of position. You know, there was that many guns trailed onto him. You can't really walk out of that one alive, Sham. You just shouldn't be able to do that. That's why I say that the top floor control is fully on the hands here for IAS.
Certainly is, and you know the thing is as well though. Yes, we lost Forever after that, you know, death inside of CEO, but it's a great performance. Picks up 1 kill, wastes a minute and a half. Happy days. That's what you want from your roamers. Well done. You know, especially from Oryx. You know, it doesn't really bring much utility in terms of what, you know, set and forget or anything like that. You really just want to play for some sort of kills, some sort of map control, and just make it difficult for the attackers. Has wasted quite a lot of time, so this will come into an importance later in the round. Of course, now we're entering that last minute. We've got 50 seconds on the clock. Skilly takes quite a bit of damage though on the sledge, and it looks as though that was potentially a C4 that have actually landed nearby. And now we're going to go for the drop for Fantasy from that server hatch, who has an angle, and there's still these Goyos to deal with though. There's quite a few canisters to pick away, and there's 30 seconds on the clock. Are they going to be able to clear this in time, Aria? What do you think?
Honestly, it's going to be a very fine margin here. As we say that though, it's going to be Habana finding one, and that's going to be the Pulse falling also. So that's going to be a very crucial player taken down. But that Goyo fire is still there, and it's going to be there for another 5 or 6 seconds. This is definitely going to be a very tight round, as that Goyo flames are going to fade away. Wow. But it's all going to be down to a 1 versus 2 here. As can find a player finds a 1, can he go for the second? Looking to find the headshot, but the players have to fall deep back. But that Pulse is up close. Just narrowly missing out those shots, and it's just quite unfortunate. That is painful. If you're the defense. Your Pulse getting just a little too aggressive there in that situation. It's just, what are you doing, Pulse?
Yep, IAS are able to pluck that one out from underneath of FTM, who looked to be in the driver's seat there, but just not expecting the Habana to completely send it through the flames. They were like a phoenix rising up to get those kills to make sure that they could close out that round, and they did exactly that. Went on the hunt, killed the player inside of Vault, and got that round. They really dragged them through, and IS are on the defense here. They're going to go to open, and they're going to try and settle this here and now. But remember, FDM on the attack was a beast when they switched outside, so I'm not too convinced that IS will be able to keep this.
I personally feel that IES have, you know, they've gained the mental here in this. You know, they pulled their tactical time out and were able to take it, you know, somewhat convincing after that. And that last round, you know, absolutely just, it was kind of a thrown round, really. you know, that pulse, you're just getting a little bit too aggressive and just feeding the kills essentially. Your mental's going to be down at least a little bit after those kind of rounds. So I definitely feel if there's a round IES can, you know, try to dominate the side of FDM, it's going to be here. It's going to have to be.
Well, we'll certainly find out in just a moment. Now the round is ticking and started, and here we go with what could be the final round inside of the server here. Forever on 18 kills and 9 deaths. If there is anything to be said, it will be from Forever, who will be trying to take them through this. They brought the IQ for the first time in all of the 13 rounds we have seen the CNIQ with the Commando no less, and I love to see the Commando because I think it's a great gun. 1.5 extended barrel, hits like a train, and we love to see it going into the final. What could be the final round of this matchup?
Yeah, it's definitely nice to see. You know, I've mentioned before IQ not having the highest pick rate, but when you know a team is pulling out that much utility, you know, the Valkyrie has been played pretty much every single round. You're wanting to deal with that because those Valcams are an absolute nuisance, to say the least. As we say, that's going to be the Jaeger fall now, and that C4 is also going to get shot, so that's not going to come into effect. As we're now in a 5 versus 4 situation, and it looks like the side of FDM are getting dominant again. This is honestly, I cannot tell you who's going to win this game, Sham. I'm on the edge of my seat right now as this game has just shifted in so many different directions.
Well, we knew it was going to be a barn burner when the two of them drew each other, FDM versus IES. The two of them are well and truly at the top of the table at the moment, and they're fighting for every single inch of the map. I love to see it. Forever as yet again getting himself a kill on the board. It's Ree to fall, and Ree is one of the heaviest, in fact, say one of the heaviest, is the heaviest hitter for the side of IES, already on 12 and 8 kills. And I say already, but you know, we're closing out this match, so on 12 kills is pretty decent return on investment here. Sickly takes a little bit of damage here, not looking too great as they stand now. And looking at this scenario, we have a little bit of a yellow ping above. They know someone's going to be on that hatch, and there's an angle opened up there, but Dana's going to find one, and now it looks as though it's fallen apart here for IAS. A minute on the clock. They still have to deal with this Maestro shield inside of Kitchen. I say Maestro shield, but I mean Maestro behind the shield, of course. Sucker is the one behind that, and just going to wait for an opportunity for a long angle towards that Teller's push.
Still, we're in dying seconds around it. About a minute left on the clock here, and this is where the pressure needs to be ramped up, but you already have the man count, so the defenders are who's really going to be struggling here. And that vertical is all the way open now. That Buck has been able to stay alive, get that done, but this Maestro is going to be an absolute thorn inside if they cannot get him shifted out. We need to see some either nades thrown, because that Yana still has 2 grenades in pocket, bear in mind, but a beautiful headshot's going to come and collect that Yana, and those nades are going to stay right in her pocket there, not going to leave. As we said, that breach is open now as well. And Maestro's also going to find one, and finds one of his own. That IQ's going to be put onto a low amount of HP. Maestro swings again, finds a beautiful headshot. And now we're down to a 3 versus 2 situation here with 20 seconds on the clock. Though this round has just slipped out of the hands of FDM. Can they win the Sham? Can they win it?
No, something to say, but there we go. Triple kill on the round, and he's looking for the quad. Forever is going to be up against it here. Just can't get them through. They just cannot deal with this. Pistol in the hand. The bailiff is there. The swing is going to be coming. Surely comes out top, but no. Forever with a drop shot, but on time it is decided. IAS take the map. They take the points, and Feria de Malaga looked like they had a chance to get into that there, but it's IAS who are able to collect it. Of course, they all of the points this evening. A-List Akademia Spirit find it, and now we are finished for this evening. Aria, what a game that was. Forever on 20 kills as well, though. Wow.
What an absolute belter of a game. That game honestly had us on the edge of our seat in so many different occasions. You know, the rounds were just back and forth. Every round was just refrags. It was down to dying seconds, and then IAS final round just stormed ahead. The man count was on their side. Maestro popping off, getting those absolute crucial frags. Valk hitting a beautiful shot onto the Iona, sitting her back down and keeping those nades in pocket. What a game we have just had.
Yeah, certainly it was. It was wonderful, back and forward all the way. You know, we got all the way to overtime and stuff like that. But two rounds is what really became the difference of it, because 8-6, excuse me, 2 rounds, of course, and both of them are decided by Sukar on the Maestro. You know, both rounds, 2 rounds that they won on open area, they won inside of that Maestro kind of hold behind his shield, and they just couldn't deal with it at all. And questions have to be raised as to, how do you deal with it? Well, was it just not the approach, or they eventually just end up feeding the Maestro kills, and it was almost like Days of Old when you had to Chanka with his shield, and you could just have the LMG and just sit above it and just rain death on everybody. And that's exactly what the Maestro done. Was able to win those rounds out, and they 2 rounds cleared to win that, and that mixes things up a little bit, in terms of the actual, the overall, statistics, or the standings. Things have changed a little bit now. So what happens there is, well, let's say actually, no, I'm talking rubbish. Completely write all that off. IS are comfortable now. It's FDM that were a little bit, got them around the wrong way a little bit. FDM 4th position still. IS now go up into the lead, very comfortable now. They're in 15 points, so they are very much in control of the groups as it stands inside the major.
Definitely, they're very, very comfortable. One thing I kind of want to touch on just briefly is, that Maestro shield, as you mentioned, one key aspect of that, Yana was nowhere to be seen.
Yeah.
I knew that shield was there. Yana with no nades. It's just, you question it. That should have been a basic. Get Yana over here. Let's get the shield gone. Let's get into Cafe. Let's take this win. But Yana was already over the side of, she was over elevators, which is a complete misplay in my opinion. But correct me if I'm wrong.
It happens. It's just one of those things, it's not something to come up against that much, and sometimes people just don't really know where the utility should be at the right moment, and mistakes are made. Anyway, that is going to be it for this evening. Thanks everyone for joining us. Just the 3 games this evening. I think the other one maybe got rescheduled. It's usually the 4, or is it 4 in the minor? I cannot ever remember because I mixed the 2 up. There we go. My producer has just confirmed in the background that the first one was Rios did, so that's why the other one has been changed. So yes, it's supposed to be 4, it's 3 tonight, but that is going to be us closing things out. Been a wonderful evening, a couple of bangers, of course, Chalet twice, and then Bank to close things off. But that is going to be it from us. Thanks everybody for joining in. And of course, before we sign off, we'll open up the doors. Of course, we are, of course, called Talent League. So we are open to always introducing more talent. Of course, Aria's first time on cast tonight, and I'm sure that she will attest that she's had a wonderful time. So if there's anybody that wants to join and anybody that wants to get involved and wants to try and have a bit of a fun time alongside me, then they can potentially go for that. And make sure you hit the DMs of Epsilon Synapsis. Make sure that you get into his DMs every single time. He's the producer. He's the one that deals with absolutely everything in the read. He's the admin. He's the owner. He's absolutely everything. And with that, I'm going to sign off tonight and see you all in the next one. See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.